It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. A long time ago in a galaxy not so far away, let's take you back to about 2010, a circa thereof, where I was having lots of conversations with people regarding output oriented versus outcome oriented Scrum. And what I can tell you is that I had an opportunity to speak at a lot of different conferences regarding this. And I put out some really cool infographic materials and some other materials. And what I found is that this was a topic that was of high interest for quite some time. And then it sort of fizzled off. And I didn't exactly know why it fizzled off until I found out that there were a couple of different groups who took the graphics that I presented and translated them into their own and labeled them as their own and were using them for their own purposes. And I'm not offended by it. In fact, I'm quite honored. I'm quite humbled. There's nothing better than a good copycat, right? But it's one of those things where I didn't scream plagiarism and I didn't get attribution, and we're all good. It's okay. But when you encounter Scrum teams who are implementing projects and they're trying to do things perfectly, they're trying to gain what I call the ultimate balance. And that's the balance between building the right thing, building the thing right, and building it fast. And we all know that building the right thing falls squarely in the corner of the product owner. And their focus on return on investment is incredibly important because they want to make sure that they're doing things in such a way that they're producing the product the consumer not only wants and needs the most, but something that's going to bring them the greatest value. Building the thing right, of course, focuses on the team, and it focuses on the mastery of their skills and allowing them to really dig in and master the tools that they have, the tools of their craft, to build the right product or service and build it with high quality. The build it fast is the one that's most interesting. A lot of people will pull it out and say build it efficient and effective, which I'm good with, but I like build it fast just because it's so clean and to the point. If you're wasting time, if you're dawdling, you're not going to get things out there. And this is the Scrum Master's responsibility. It's to make sure that we understand and that we understand and help remove impediments or help the team remove impediments that they can't remove themselves. But also, it's a quest for autonomy and for the team to become self-organizing and self-managing. And I think that it's so important for us to understand that target in the middle, if you lay it out in a Venn diagram, that target in the middle where you got all three overlapping is quite small. It's not easy to get it perfectly right, perfectly efficient and effective. It's just not common to see that. So it's one of those things where you ask yourself, there are trade-offs and there are things you could do, but the goal is to help build value, minimize risk, and limit WIP. So if you pull these things together, I guess I should start by talking about maybe what I see when it comes to output oriented teams. A lot of times, if you start talking about lean or Kanban, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, they are output focused. They're output driven. They want to whip through as many of the tickets as they can. They want to get as much work as possible done. They are solely focused on output, output, output. They tend to focus a little bit more on quality control as well. So they focus on variance, and they want to make sure that they're minimizing technical risk, gaining knowledge, and building things with efficiency and speed. That's their thing, right? And once again, I want to emphasize there's nothing wrong with a team that's output oriented as long as they're driving it for the right purposes. Then there are outcome oriented teams. Now, outcome oriented teams are the ones that tend to primarily start their focus on customer value. They want to focus on impact. They want to focus on how can we build as little as possible and have the longest lasting or best impact. And they start focusing on things like feedback loops, and they kind of put efficiency, speed, and stuff like that on back burner. They don't necessarily burn off quality, but they do put efficiency and speed back there because they want to make sure that what they're delivering is going to yield the best outcome. Now, finding the balance is quite interesting because there's always trade-offs by saying if you constantly focus on building the right thing and building it perfectly right, well, you're not ever going to build it fast enough to get it to market. If you build something really, really high quality very fast, chances are you're not building what the customer asked for. I think you see where I'm going with this, right? It doesn't matter which of the two you choose. There's still always that technical degree of takeoff in order to get there. With that being said, I think that we need to regenerate our focus. Now, I remember in October 2012, Heinrich Nieberg produced the video Agile Product Ownership in a Nutshell. Millions of views later, what I can tell you is I still look at this as the epitome of what we should be doing. It is the prime example of everything that we can do right. And he goes on to establish, a case for having a team backlog. He goes on to establish a case for how to handle scaling. I mean, this video is just so incredible. But one of the things he talks about is that sometimes we have to focus on internal technical value first, firefighting versus fire prevention, and we have to build things that aren't necessarily sexy to the end consumer, but things that are necessary in order for us to continue adding value. Then we can shift the focus of our value to individual or outcome based value and impact value. And when we start focusing on customer value, that's where we see the steep value curve. And we know that we can continue to build things. And then when we see it kind of gradually flatten out, that's when we know it's time to trim the tail and we can move on to something bigger and better. But I think that the development of customer value and technical value merged together forces us to think in terms of we need ways to make sure we're taking into consideration all the consumers' wants, needs, whims, and desires, to make sure we're taking in strategic priority and evidence showing what direction we're trying to take our product or service as a company. And we also need to be aware of technological needs, technological changes, strengths, areas of focus, any kind of updated technology that's going to help us do these jobs better. And what I can tell you is that up until this point, we have done a good job of, I shouldn't say a good job. Many organizations have done a good job of embracing the technical side of things and figuring out, who the team member is they need to talk to or the team lead to make sure they got that piece right. But the other two pieces kind of go by the wayside, and we leveraged a product owner as a subject matter expert to make many decisions for us without taking into consideration that while this person is a subject matter expert, they may not know everything. And it's a good idea to find out what the customer's clamoring for, what they've been struggling with. So that way we can make sure as we build a product or service that we are indeed building the right thing. So with that being said, I think that the key to all of this, the key to understanding outcome versus output, the key to understanding when it's so important for us to engage and what credence or things yield the most importance or the most urgency. It's important for us to understand that we need to be very clear with our sprint goal. We need to be very clear with what our intentions are and how we intend to work. And as a product owner, we need to make sure we engage with multiple people. One who I might call a business analyst who understands implicitly the wants, needs, whims, and desires of the target consumer. Someone who I refer to as a functional analyst who understands strategically what direction we're trying to take things as an organization, who communicates regularly with executive leadership and knows how to guide us. And of course, with a technical analyst, that's someone who represents the team and technology to make sure that we're building and focused on the impact that's going to yield to the end consumer. So I hope that this does it for you, because I think that kind of drives and tells you the difference. And this isn't saying output's bad or outcome's good. It's just saying they're two different things. There's two different times to use them. So I hope this information is helpful to you. If you have a topic you want us to cover on a Daily Stand-Up podcast, feel free to reach out to me. Learn more at agiledad.com, where I'd love to cover your topic. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.